is Amy. I'm
Oh,
trying to get my camera on and change the logo.
okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we'll begin, as always, with the roll call. So we have Ron Assini,
Present.
Michael Coltman,
Present.
Nora Bucko,
Present.
Mark Doxer is not as yet. John Parsons.
I think I'm there. If you can hear me.
That's the mystery guest. Oh,
You
and Mark
made it.
Doxer? Mark? Okay. And John Sasso? Not as yet. Sometimes John is a minute or two
So quiet. Why?
late, as we know. Okay, and Jean had an announcement for people who may not know. This would be the time.
Are you guys
Thank
able to hear me? No?
Can't hear you?
Yes, you can. Okay.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't hear you. Hang on. I gotta get my speakers. I know why.
Oh, John Sasso's present as well, is noted. Okay,
Okay. Just gotta plug in the speaker. One of those things.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who makes them.
Question is how many per day?
Okay, Jean.
Yes, so thank you. I have some news that I wanted to share with the committee. I will be retiring in February. February 1st is my last day with the town. So I wanted to let the committee know and to say thank you for everything. This group has been a great group, and I've been so thrilled to be at least on the sidelines of all this great work. So thanks everybody. And I didn't want you to find out about it through the grapevine. I know the word is already out, but
Oh,
thanks again.
well, thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Congratulations.
Hanging there with us for a while.
Yeah, you have me for another 5 or 6 months. So yeah,
Okay.
Congratulations, Gene.
thank you.
I'll now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the July 6th meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any additions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Okay, it'll be Ron Assini,
Yes.
Nora Bucko,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
Michael Coltman,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
and John O'Neill, yes. Okay, so now we'll, I guess, the exciting part of the agenda, not that the whole agenda is, filled with, bells and whistles here. So Mark, are you going to take the lead on this? I know Fidel was hoping to be here.
I'm happy to take the lead on it and kind of share what's going on. And I'm wondering, it may lead pretty directly to kind of step 6 a little bit. But you can certainly, John, control, where you want it to go. But let's talk a little bit. So the former Walgreens building is 17 Harnden Street. If you'll remember about, I guess, a month and a half ago, the town issued a request for proposals that related to the possibility of leasing space. And we were looking for short-term or frankly, longer term as well. And as we all know, we've all been kind of thinking about this building and wondering what's up with it, what's going on. Nothing's been there for 7+ years. It's downtown. Wouldn't it be great? So Fidel, the board and Fidel were all started to want to poke at it. Fidel started to poke at it. We issued this request for proposals, and that building is the only one that responded. They came back to us with an offer to lease it for 20 years, 10 years, and then 2 options of 5 years on top of that. They had a rent that relates to the first 9 years, which is like $18,000 a month, and then the rate goes up to $36,000 because of how they're anticipating their arrangements changing with Walgreens. So so the board had that, and last night at the select meeting, we authorized the town manager to issue another request for proposals, again, to all businesses down there that meet our requirements for space, to, you know, any and all comers for a purchase or a rent to buy type arrangement, and to explore that to see what's happening. We did not act on the first RFP yet, meaning it's still open. They have, I think they hold it for 60 days, and it may be possible to negotiate to hold it open longer, but we not responded to that, you know, yes or no, or anything else. We hope that they and others will respond to this new request for proposals and see what kinds of offers we might get. And then I believe it's going to be open for, I believe it's 30 days. So on or around September 11th, plus or minus, we should have some information back on this request for proposals to see who responds. And then the select board will have some discussions about what might make the most sense in terms of taking things forward. Whatever we do, if anything, if it's a lease, if it's another type of arrangement, town meeting clearly will have to weigh in. And if it turns out that it's a request for, let's say it turned out to be a purchase, that's a possibility in one of the this location or another, that would end up going to the voters as well. So the process is, the RFP was literally issued today. And so somewhere around the 11th or so of September, we'll see who responds, and hopefully we'll get some responses to that. The select board would then consider options, negotiate in terms of what was going on, then get it to town meeting, maybe November, because things are, you know, it'll be September when we're getting these responses, or if not, then very soon thereafter. And then depending on what the request is and depending on town meeting's action, it may go to the voters. So that's the process. That's kind of what's going on. You know, some things have obviously changed. I think that I had a chance to go into the building briefly on Friday to see what it looks like. It looks a whole lot like an empty Walgreens. All the racks and things are taken out, but basically what's going on is you've got 9,500 or so square feet on the first floor. There are some columns there, but there's really not much of anything else. So it's fairly open space. Could be configured in all sorts of different ways. And we'd be getting it kind of, you know, at this point, it sounds like as is their offer, but who knows, maybe there are negotiations to happen. There's a mezzanine, and that mezzanine is about 4,700 square feet.
Wow.
There are some offices up there already, 3, 4, 5 about, and a large room. I think it's a couple thousand square feet in terms of size in that room. And
Any room for expansion on the mezzanine, Mark?
So that's, you're outside my expertise.
Okay.
In terms of what's going on. I think not, but not being a builder or an architect, definitely don't take my word. But you know, the total space is a bit over 14,000 square feet, not quite 15,000. And to me, it looks interesting. It looks very interesting for the town as an opportunity. And I think as the RFPs went out, the RFPs were specific to a senior center. I mean, that's mentioned specifically in the first RFP and the one that went out today as well. So that's the, I guess, hoped use. There's a lot of space. I mean, 15,000 square feet is a lot of space. I think there are a lot of possibilities. I'm really intrigued by it as an opportunity to really look at and see, you know, if we can meet our needs to bring that forward to the community and see what's possible. Can I pivot slightly from that? Because I think one of the questions that everybody may have is, gee, and we're a recalc, and we're working on all these things, and we're marching along, you know, toward November. And wait a minute, this thing has just kind of come up. So what's the deal? What's happening? So I think it's really exciting. I think that one of the things that the town is going to want to do is understand how much it would cost to configure, furbish, whatever the right words are, this building or another, but let's say it's this building for the moment, what would we want it to do? What are the kinds of things that we, actually I made a little list for myself. Activities, rooms, purposes, hours, total space desired, and for what? Those are questions. If Recalc can provide even early guidance to the town, then an architect can give an estimate and just say, okay, well, if you're doing, this kind of stuff and this much changing and rejiggering and this kind of that stuff, it'll cost about X dollars. And that would be important to have as an estimate of what that would be, because as we think about the cost of leasing or purchasing or anything else, as is, it doesn't do anybody any good. So we have to figure out what we'd want it to do. So I'm hoping, hey, Fidel, I'm hoping that one of the things that we can talk about tonight, either in this section or in the next steps of the committee, is thinking about what sorts of things do we already have? What information do we already have? We have this vast database of benchmarked communities. We have the results of a number of focus groups. Although the survey isn't going out until September, today is August the 10th. It's not that far away. And so I think it would be great to start thinking about how can we organize, first of all, what we already have in terms of information, and put that together on a really quick time frame, like for early September kind of time frame. And then it may be that depending on how many people respond to the survey, if many people do it online or are helped to do it online so that there's not as much handwork or phone work, and as much as possible is brought in over the internet, maybe there's some early reads we can get on that. With the goal being, let's provide the town and potentially an architect with the best information so we can estimate what we might do in this facility, how much it would cost, because in order to get to town meeting and potentially to get to the voters, we need to know that. We need to have an estimate of what it's going to be. A rough idea isn't going to cut it. There's some time sensitivity on things. The RFPs are the response time is set as 60 days. It may be possible to negotiate slightly longer amounts of time. That's possible. But I think that there is an opportunity right now. The way that this worked, where we saw the first 9 years at the reduced rent, I think implies that there's something interesting that the town can take advantage of here. And we'd like to do that. That's exactly what we'd like to do. Let me take a breath, see if there are any questions or comments.
Couple quick questions.
Sure.
So have you guys thought about a couple things? One is, what if they don't come back at all with any responses to this second RFP? And is it, given that as a scenario, given what you have already, have you guys thought about, I know this would be more executive session stuff, but like negotiating positions or what things you might want to present if you had to go back with just that option on the table?
So yes, we have thought of that. And there have been some discussions in executive session already. I think that the most important thing would be for Recalc and the community to be able to share an idea of what we would want to do in that space, so that we can get an estimate for, if we do anything with that building, how much it's going to cost to do that. And then I think the board is in a position to start negotiating. There's also the possibility that other downtown buildings will respond to the new RFP. I don't know. There's only one that responded to the first one, but who knows what'll happen in this next one. And it has to be an open process, and great that it is, because maybe we'll find some other interesting alternatives. But it may be that we don't get any responses. We are sensitive on the time, and we know that we already have the 60 days. And if Fidel can chime in here a little bit, but it sounds like it may be possible to negotiate a slightly longer period of time if needed. We certainly would want to open that up. But we're trying to do all this inside of that window so that we have the most flexibility and a chance to figure out what's the best opportunity for the town, what would we need, how much would it cost, and then take it forward.
Yeah, I'll say, John, that as a government entity bound by procurement law, there's things that are appropriate to talk about at a given time. But we as a board and us as a team have definitely thought about your question. What if they don't respond? Which is why the board is keeping both tracks on parallel, if you will. We're not shutting down the option of the lease if that is the best option. But we as you hinted, there's things that we can talk in executive session, and there's things that we can't.
Well, with the lease, let's say that was the only avenue open, but then you'd still have the same issue, Mark, as far as there'd be a lot of work would have to be done if that was the location. That would be very costly. And then if you're weighing that investment on top of the rent and the escalated rent, that's and for something that's you have less control over, because now it looks like 20 years seems like a long time, but
it'll pass in the blink of an eye.
Yes, actually.
And if I remember correctly, that location, the parking situation is not that great.
Correct.
They came back to us. So we actually have, it's public record in terms of, I think there are 6 spots that they have control over. I think that there are shared spots already with the town in the lot back there that are, they're being utilized already. It doesn't provide a lot of parking by itself.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about transportation needs. We've heard that in our benchmark from other locations, that transportation to and from is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I think that all has to be considered in the equation. And look, we don't yet know what we're going to need to do it if this is the best option. But I think what we also need to think about is, let's say we come back and say, well, we're going to just, build something in town-owned land or something like that. The cost for that is going to be, not insubstantial, let's say. So we're going to be comparing a little bit to what that opportunity might look like, and see, again, we're trying to figure out what's the best opportunity for the town.
And to me, Mark, there's a great potential with all that parking spaces along Bolton Street that's never used for a shuttle. And it wouldn't be that, so at least in my mind, that I keep open the possibility of a downtown location if you did that. But
I think that's spot on. And I think one of the things that would be great for ReCal to be thinking about now in kind of this next step, I'm going to call it weeks instead of months, because I think that's the realistic time frame, are issues like that. How might we address an issue like that? Because any downtown location is going to face these same challenges. It's not like we're suddenly going to find a space, as 15,000 square feet and 50 cars of parking. I don't think we have anything like that available.
I'll just go back to the comment that I heard from the Needham Center at that time. They have 60 parking spaces and they wish they had more. Imagine that. So even 60 in a town that's about the same size as ours in a lot of ways, right?
It needs to be something that's in the consideration set. But I also think that, how is it going to be used? Who's going to use it? And, if we put it in a more remote location, I think parking becomes infinitely more important.
Yeah.
In downtown, perhaps, a little bit less. But that's, that has to be factored in. That's part of the consideration. There's no kind of, foregone conclusion. I can tell you that of the folks who looked in the building from the town side, there were a lot of people who had visions for what they might want to do. But these RFPs are related to the senior center, and I think now is our chance to really kind of come back and say, hey, here's what we know, here's what we've learned, here's what we suggest. What costs would be, or go back to Fidel and to Joe Huggins and facilities, say, what kind of costs would be incurred to get this set up the way that we're discussing, to accommodate the programs, the services, the activities that we're talking about. And I fully expect that there could be, other other uses. This could be let's call it a 24/7 facility in lots of different ways. There are a lot of different things that might take place. Its location is going to be hard to beat. Not all positives, but a lot. And so, there's a value associated with that. We'll figure out if that makes sense. The select board will vote on it, seeking all sorts of input, and then it's going to town meeting. And if let's say there were to be a space that would involve purchase, then it goes to the voters as well, obviously, so that they agree to pay for it or not.
And back to your point about the survey is calling out some of those things as well too. So maybe a location like that, it may turn out, but people really like that type of location. So maybe something that's more acceptable by most folks.
Yeah, I think what's really cool is that all of us, whether saying it kind of up front or in the background, have always said, boy, what the heck's going on with that building? What can we do? Or is there another facility downtown, frankly, that could accommodate what we're hoping to do? And then suddenly it happened, and maybe in some sense a little bit quicker than ideal for our own schedule. But that's what we have. So let's make the best decisions that we can.
Well, regardless, it's an eyesore today. So, Fidel, you got a problem anyhow. As an eyesore in the center of town, right?
Check, right?
Just being honest.
Yeah. Are there other questions in terms of what's happening? So, this doesn't stop any of the other activities. So, for example, the select board voted to form a committee to explore building something down on Simon's Way, in the land that we acquired a couple of years ago. And there's a good amount of buildable land there also. And the timing of that was meant to start when we have a lot of the feedback from Recalc and from the survey. I mean, it's set up to dovetail really nicely. So there are, certainly other possibilities. We just have to make decisions based on, what comes in after the RFP, and we'll see where we go from there.
Now with the RFP, is it acceptable to reach out to people?
So they have to come to us. Everything has to be public, transparent.
No, but I mean, can you direct things towards people? Because I know that's usually done.
I mean, I'll say, John, the last time we issued the RFP, if this question came up, and I it's publicly advertised. We do outreach, right? I mean, I certainly do targeted outreach to a lot of different groups. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. Yes.
Amy, I see your hand up in the corner.
Yes, sorry. Any advice on how to handle some of the questions when people are asking at the center? Like a couple people have asked the staff and me the thoughts on Walgreens. There's already a little chit chat, and I just want to make sure that my team has, all the same response. So I've told them, we're at Recalc. This is something that the select board is going to decide, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all, on the same page with what we're saying.
Awesome. If I could say two things on that, and Fidel, you should respond as well. One is we'd love to hear from people, and whether it's before the survey, during the survey, after the survey, whatever. What are people's thoughts, particularly about the needs? What is it that you're looking for? What kinds of services, activities, programs, space? Those things would be very helpful. The second is maybe, as John talks about the communication plan, maybe there's a piece that we add or create that focuses on that. And I'd be happy to participate in that aspect of it as well, so that there is, a list of, FAQs, if you will, frequently asked questions, that would give information. Obviously, once we have received the responses to the latest RFP and that's closed, the information can be, a little bit more up to speed. And then even once that's done, assuming whether we get a response or not, the select board still has a lot of work to do in determining what the best path might be to take it forward.
I mean, I'll say, Amy, that I think Karen Herrick came to the last Council on Aging meeting, right? I mean, and heard a lot of feedback. We had select board hours, and Rosemary attended. I mean, the dialogue is good. I think I think it gives us an opportunity to answer some questions. I think it gives us an opportunity to address some of their concerns, right? I mean, and so I would say I have no problem with you saying, you know, here's Fidel's card and here's his phone number, right? I mean, I'm sure that you know, people want to come and ask a question. That's totally fine. I think sharing what's public is appropriate, right? I mean, no decision has been made, right? I mean, if they're asking for your personal opinion as a citizen, right? I mean, that's totally fine. But at this point, we're close to a done deal yet.
Yeah, it's
And
kind
this
of
is a recorded session, so this is public knowledge.
Yeah.
So, right.
So, yeah,
I always
I mean,
refer them to the recount.
Yeah, just, you know, hey,
I would
well,
say you
it's
should watch
an
it.
option, right? So it's things that the town is looking at. So
yeah, and you know, look, it's an option that you know, we've been fortunate to have a response to the first RFP. We'll see what happens with the second, and we'll make some evaluations based on that and see where it goes. That's, I mean, that's the reality of where we are.
Okay, good, great. Thank you.
I am going to jump to number 6 because I think we need to talk about next steps, just timing wise. I think something we're going to need to do anyway, hopefully in the future, as far as hone in, and we realize that. So what steps can we realistically be able to take over the next month or so?
I'm glad you asked that question, John.
Okay.
I started to make a list, and if it all, again, you know, chime in, you know, after. I created 2 lists. I call it Gather A and Gather B. Gather A, for us to take the information, some of which we've already gathered through the benchmarking discussions that we've had as a group, other things, to be thinking about what are the activities, number of rooms, purposes, hours, spaces desired for what, that kind of discussion based on what we have talked about or looked at or brought in already. The purpose of that is obviously for us to kind of gather our thoughts, but also to feed information to an architect so that they have, again, the basics of, you know, if we suddenly said, yeah, we want 50 offices in there, that's a very different set of costs and structure from saying, no, we're looking for 3 total large rooms. You know, it's very different in scope. So that Gather A is very helpful, ASAP, I call it, and probably that means, you know, early September kind of time frame. I'm looking for Fidel's head to nod one way or another. I haven't seen it yet. No.
Just kidding.
So I think that it's quick. It's ASAP in terms of doing that from what we have. Then what I called Gather B, and I think that's kind of for early October, and that would correspond to, I think, when we thought we'd be coming to the select board with kind of our early thoughts. You know, maybe we haven't analyzed the survey 100%, but early thoughts on things. So that would be early feedback on the survey, any preliminary suggestions, conclusions, adding in additional feedback and detail to what we had already done in Gather A that may relate more to the multi-generational side of things, community center side of things. In having those 2 pieces, so let's say we have that for the first piece, ASAP, early September, the B for early October, that might put us on a timeline for November town meeting to not only have a proposal that's gone through the select board, having, you know, broad information and presenting to town meeting if we decide that this is a path we want to pursue. That would dovetail for a November town meeting. If it doesn't all quite fit, it may be that it has to sneak out just slightly, and perhaps there could be an option to call a special town meeting. We certainly, I don't think, could or would want to wait until April if we were going to pursue one of the responders to the RFPs. So I think those are like incredibly high value activities that can inform, you know, the town on, you know, here's kind of what we're thinking in broad terms at this point, and then filling in with a lot more detail in early October, less on the architectural side, but more kind of on the how we're thinking it's going to get used side. Again, I really think this can be a 24/7 kind of facility in terms of what's going on, given its location, what's set up there. There could be some good meeting space. Everyone, I think, who went into the building said, oh yeah, this is where the athletics are going to go. This is where the computers are going to go. This is where such and such is going to go. It'd be great to have someone who's got some background, who's worked on other senior centers in the past, to be able to kind of synthesize from, we're saying, okay, we're looking for, 3 or 4 activities. Some of them are small group or large group oriented. We need a space that holds X people for meals and other activities. Is it a functioning kitchen? Is it a catering kitchen? I don't know what the right terms are. Those pieces, as we're thinking about them, would be great input. And that'll help inform the decision of, hey, you need to allocate X dollars for build up. Fidel, anything you want to put on top?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think John Sasso and I actually walked the senior center, a bit ago. Hold on a second, right there. Sorry.
Just maybe one thing for background for everybody. So the current senior center, and Jean, Amy, Jenna, correct me, I think it's 4,000 to 5,000 square feet in total. Forget how it's laid out for a moment.
6,000.
6,000.
Right, it's not usable space, but yeah.
Right, it's not usable space. So this new facility is 9,700 on the main floor and another 4,400 or so on the second.
Right, do we know the size of that main room alone, Gene?
So yeah, I'm sorry, in the existing or the new one? John, sorry.
The great room at the Pleasant Street Center.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's about 700 square feet,
Okay.
700 square feet or so. So the idea, what I was saying is, that John Sasso and I actually walked the senior center, right, our existing senior center, and one of the ideas that we had, right, is we've got to come up pretty quickly with the needs in terms of like space, big categories, right? So we can feed it to the architect that we are going to hire. And by the way, we this architect is going to cost money, right? So if you recall, we received a $300,000 allocation from ARPA for a feasibility study, right? I consider layout of a potential Walgreens space part of the feasibility study. Hopefully Recalc would agree. But what we have done is we've kind of taken a little bit of that ARPA money. I'm not sure how much the final bill is going to be, but I'm thinking $30,000 just to do some very high level conceptual layouts. And I think kind of to piggyback what Mark is saying, I would recommend that Recalc selects maybe 1 or 2 members that can take more offline meetings with myself, with Joe Huggins, with Jean, Jenna, Amy, and start picking away at these needs, right? I know that Jean has shared that John Sasso has a spreadsheet, with the summary of the visits, right? I feel like all the information is there. We just gotta bring it together, I don't want to say clean it up, but like consolidate it, and then hand it off to Joe. But as you know, if you've done a kitchen, right, in your house, it usually takes several iterations, right? Like there's a wall that you want to remove, and you say, maybe you start laying things out a little differently, and that's those things are best done in working sessions. And to Mark's point, I mean, I see that happening in the next 60 days. So my request to Recalc would be to appoint 1 or 2 members that can work, off hours, with us, with staff to lay it out. Obviously, it is our intent that whatever we do come up with, we will come back to Recalc several times, right? I mean, and we certainly don't want to do anything without the blessing of the committee. But having working sessions would be very, very valuable.
Okay, with that in mind, as far as people being the best, having the best knowledge of their own availability, I mean, obviously John Sasso would be an obvious person, but John's been taking a lead role in the communications, and that's a lot. So I'm not going to ask, but if I'll look for volunteers first. Anybody? Okay, Mark.
That was a surprise.
Okay, and Michael. Okay, Mark and Michael.
I'm going to be gone for the very last week of August, but other than that, I'm around.
Yeah. Okay. I think it would be great for the committee as a whole to, in the next couple of weeks, literally kind of pull together everyone's thoughts already from what already, everyone's been very involved. Everyone's done visits. It would be great to kind of gather that information as a committee. And then if there's a few members that are joining, Fidel and staff, then I think that's great.
Is the focus to look at the requirements and design possibilities for the Walgreens Center, or specifically?
Specifically, in this round, right? I mean, I'll say that like that's the timely portion, right?
Yeah.
Should this site not work out, it wouldn't be a wasted effort, I don't think.
And again, just to be clear, there may be another
Sure.
property that comes through in the second RFP.
You think of the old library down at, in the Market Basket Shopping Center may come up or something like that. That could be
I'm thinking of that. It was a gym and fights.
Yeah, the old
the old
Gold's Gym.
Actually,
it's a library. It's a gym. It's a
yeah.
No, it's around it's not where the library was, but it's in that.
It's the same building, same structure. Yeah.
A lot more.
I wouldn't mind participating. For me, I'm a visual person. I'd want to see the inside of the building to take a look. Okay. Oh, there you go. There you go. All right, Mark, can you PDF that and send it over?
We can't really have any more than 3 members of the committee working on it. Am I correct? Because then it would be a meeting. Oh, John Sasso has his hand up and Michael Coltman has his hand up. Okay.
They were first, so let them go first. Their hands were up before mine.
I think Jen is first then in terms of who
Okay,
gets
sure.
up on.
Okay. Hey, Jen.
Sounds good.
Hi there. I do have some good pre-existing relationships, especially with the Lexington Community Center director. And then when I was going on my tours, I formed very good relationships with the Peabody Senior Center, Salem Community Center, and Danvers Senior Center. So is it beneficial to maybe see if we could plan to have a couple of them come into the Walgreens building with us and just brainstorm based on, all of their wealth of experience? Salem just opened up their center a few years back or a couple of years back. Danvers has pre-existed for a long time, Peabody as well. So they can kind of speak to the area and what they would think. I know Reading has its own set of what they would want, and it could be different from a bigger city, but I think that might be helpful if anyone feels the same.
I think it's a great idea. I think my only comment is, I think the most important thing is to think about what are the needs that we want to address with the center.
Yeah, and it's just so hard because I don't know how much data we'll have with the survey so early on.
We don't rely on the survey early on. We rely on, we've been doing the benchmarking that we have done already. We've got, John, 19, 20 that are in there. How many in total? Something like that?
John Sasso, what was the total?
16 right now.
16. And we can probably add a few others. So there's some
I think there are a few more that I'm hoping to get in, but even the 16 give us a really good perspective.
Okay, Michael?
I just was curious. My thoughts are that if we do get additional space, Walgreens space or some other space downtown, that this would be in adjunct to the Pleasant Street Center. And we're not talking about taking everything out of Pleasant Street and just doing
I would think you would be. See, my assumption is that you would be. That you wouldn't be.
I was just curious whether this is a two building kind of.
You got to look at operational costs, right, to maintain both of them at the same time. So that'd be.
So just,
I mean, as an example, Melrose does their senior center in 2 buildings. And there are advantages to doing that, and there are disadvantages to doing that. And I was just curious what our thoughts were. In terms of square footage, it would get us up into the 20,000 square foot space kind of range.
No, you get up to 20,000, right?
15,000.
15 and 5. I think this is why, Mike, it's really important to go back to the needs side of things rather than trying to say, what would we do with 20,000 square feet? What are we looking for? What do we need? What are the ways that it can best be used? The arrangement that we make originally, with a current owner would relate to the new building only. And then obviously it's up to us in thinking about what's going to happen.
So Mark, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I was just trying to think of the spaces that we need. There's the 700 square foot room at the Pleasant Street Center. What would you do with a 2,000 square foot space, say at Walgreens, a 5,000 square foot space?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking my opinion would be.
No, I'm not asking. I'm
don't
just
worry.
saying we got to work those out in the programs.
I would strongly suggest that we figure out what it is that we're looking for, not where it is. What is it? And then it
Right, and how big is it?
on that. Exactly.
And how big it is.
Yeah. So how many people do we need to have in certain types of activities? How many types of activities need to run concurrently? What happens when you're looking for more of a meal, an event, something like that? What kind of space would be required for that? What's required for exercise space, things like that. And then kind of armed with some of those things, then again, with an architect who's got some experience with some senior centers, and to Jenna's point too, maybe some folks who have either built them or repurposed other buildings already, we can come back and say, oh, okay, you want to think about it this way. This is the right way to do it. And remember, what we're trying to do is be able to come back to town staff and then this architect to get a handle on what kind of upfit costs are going to be involved. Is it a couple $100,000? Is it $1 million? Is it, who knows what? Because that has to factor into the decision also. And that's how much money we're asking, town meeting, the taxpayers for. We need to know what that's going to look like.
John Sasso?
Yeah, so I got a couple things on my mind here. I actually was thinking, Michael, the same question you are. Does this mean that we could consider the other use? But I think Mark makes a good point. It's really about defining the needs. So I don't know if you guys remember, but when we actually first started, so probably a pretty premature, I had actually created a spreadsheet that kind of laid out features, functions, and space needs and things of that nature. And we kind of have to go back to that, I think. And really, and I think I think it's clear, and I'll certainly ask everybody on the call to shake their heads on this. We basically have the information we have at this point. We're not, as much as we would like to have, additional survey feedback, that's not really going to happen, at least in the short term, real short term, that is. So we're going to have to rely on what we know, the work that most folks have done doing surveys, as well as all of the conversations we've had. So I think we're going to have to rely on that. And what I would like to suggest, and while I certainly didn't expect or want to volunteer from the perspective of taking time off on that side, but I think it's good that we try to put together some stuff together. As I know we have this difficulty about how we work on things, but I think we should have a prioritized list that we can kind of hand off to Mark and Michael, but we really have to flush that list out. One of the concerns I have about the list, though, is that even though we may have an idea of priorities and idea of spaces, we're not really sure about, well, what sort of program participation are we thinking? Because that actually drives some of the space requirements. And we kind of had that discussion a long time ago with Kevin about, well, how do we know, like, if we need a gym, what's the largest group that we need to expect? What's the biggest program? How do we size that based on what we think might be the needs? I'm not sure we have, any better information about that today, other than perhaps what we've seen at other centers, or perhaps with a participation that we might be able to drag out of existing programs. So I think that's a concern I have about, we can still go through, we can drive some priorities, we can flush out some space needs, but it's really going to be very rough. And I think as long as we understand that's rough, then I think we're good.
Especially with the time frame, right? So
Yeah,
I want to give some high level stuff to a potential architect to say, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, it would be helpful if you had if you can actually be very specific as far as, all right, we need, numbers of rooms, those kinds of things, so that we can get everybody to get some input, as well as the committee, because otherwise I think if it's just too open-ended without some, frame, then it's, given the short timeline here, it may be difficult to do.
So I'm happy to kind of turn that into a document. I might suggest that I touch base with Gene and Fidel a little bit first, and Jenna, just to kind of go through it, make sure it's clear, make sure that the answers to those questions will give them enough info to kind of feed facilities and an architect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking, we do this in days, not longer.
And Amy, I know, to John Sasso's point, that we had asked Kevin at one point, and he generated data as far as utilization and number of people for different, activities. Now, if you could take a look at that, and and we're all just doing the best we can here, and say, all right, this one was full. We really could have, and we didn't even do that much marketing or publicity on, so that might give us a little bit more concrete information as far, direction as to what the possible uses might be and need might be for size of room.
Absolutely. We can do that. We've been very careful about capturing who comes in, even can run reports, so we can get that information anytime.
I want to go back, if I could, just for a sec, back to Jenna's comments and others, since we've gone to the 16 centers already. Maybe we can find comparable sized communities or close to that, talk to them about what they, how it works. When you have less of a capacity limitation, how many people come? We know we have 27% of our community is age 60 plus. We know that, different chunks of that age segment more likely to come for certain things than for others. I would like to not just kind of look at our past history, but also look at, hey, other communities that have done this, here's what it's looked like. Here's what the opportunities have been. And when you have less of a capacity limitation, what do you get? How many people come?
Well, Wilmington was a good indicator when I went there, is that, they had 12,000 square feet, and for many of their activities, she had indicated, and she had given some examples, they had waiting lists, with that size. And that was the reason why, when I asked the question about, do you do things with other senior centers? And she said, but we don't have any capacity to take anybody else. Yeah, I think we could get some helpful information from taking a look at comparable sized communities and how things have gone.
Jenna has her hand up in the corner, John.
Okay.
And I think that's a good point, Mark, about anticipating, future programs that might go in there that don't pre-exist at the senior center, like Mike can speak to, the growing pickleball population. So there's tons of pickleball players. We book indoor space at the schools, but there's just very limited space, and a majority of those players are seniors. So looking into Lexington and Salem, they didn't have gyms that were big enough to accommodate pickleball, or maybe a sport that a younger senior would enjoy playing. Or so that's something that I think that we should also consider, is anticipating some opportunities that seniors would like to participate in that they can at the current center.
There's also, there's at least this baby elephant in the room, and that is the community center, because we're talking about senior center, And I know never came to a final, we haven't come to the recommendation as far as community/senior center. We've talked around it, and there's been some comments along the line to give some indication, but it's hard for me to say we're going to come up with these recommendations without at least taking a look at what might be some of the other needs. Like Jenna would know from recreation's, side of it, what might be some things with the space that we would have for a senior center that would fit. But maybe I'd at least like to be aware of, are there some things that unique needs for a broader population that may arise? Not that we're going to be able to take care of everything, but at least I want to know that we're on this fast track, that we're at least, have that in mind. And I'm not, so I guess I'll just throw that out there. So for everybody, the people who are going to be actively working on it. And the reason why I'm not volunteering, because I told people, a few people are on it initially, this is my 9th day with COVID. And I don't know how long it's going to continue. So I really can't be committing myself over the next, couple of weeks anyway, till I see how things go.
Yeah, John, I don't think it needs to be an elephant at all. I
Okay.
think that different potential locations, there are pros and cons to each. This facility is, I'm just looking it up, it's the first floor is 9,750 square feet, and the second floor is 4,390. There are columns and all sorts of things that are there. Those will outline some constraints at the end of the day. But again, let's figure out what the needs are, and we'll talk about how to address it. Back to Mike's comment on, where do things happen? Maybe it does require access to other locations at different times, whether it's another quote unquote senior center, or it's other recreational needs, or, Simon's Way activities, who knows what's going to go on there. But, I would imagine that there'll be a lot of potentially new athletic oriented facilities that the town may look at there.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure.
Just one other thing. So before we close the subject, so what is the plan then? What's the action? How do we start to feed the information to a point where, it can be collated and organized, and then, given to Mike and Mark to present and work through? I mean, I'm certainly willing to go through the stuff that we have and try to prioritize, but I think everybody, should feel that we can, pull together our thoughts and feed it in that way. We're not going to be able to Fidel's point, we needs to be a smaller group, but I'd like to at least be able to have the ability to provide that input, at least with what we have.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I asked, Mark about coming up with some, an outline of helping direct us as far as the input. What would be the most helpful input? Because I would hope that every member of the committee would be involved in doing that. And also, I had Ron, you indicated interest too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, take a look and
Okay.
I got to see stuff visually though. I have to look at space and
So Mike, Ron, and Mark,
map it out. It's just the way
everybody
I work.
would be, actively would be not only invited but urged to provide, input. I think everybody was on some site visits, which certainly will prove helpful. And then, okay, Michael, you have your hand up.
I was going to say, I think the first step is to go back to John Sasso's activities list and pull that out, organize it again in terms of spaces and things like that. And I think it's very important at this stage to not limit it to senior center versus community center versus, what are the things that we could fit in, but to think about all the needs of all the spaces that we might want. There's no way you can get a pickleball gym in Walgreens. So, but I think that would be a great thing for the town to have someday.
I was in that upstairs. Might be possible, Mike. Wait until you walk through.
Okay, I'm anxious to get there.
May have to
Pretty
convert it to
big.
ping pong, Michael. Maybe not pickleball.
But in pickleball, like, you could line it for pickleball, but you could have Zumba class in there, and you can have line dancing up there. And
I mean, that, to me,
So-
I almost, with the time constraints you have here, I should almost take it up at a macro level. We need a multi-purpose room. We should have a kitchen of some sort, and maybe a small gym as well too. Just macro level stuff versus program level stuff. Because a multi-purpose room, you have dividers that you can put up. You can split it up into multi things. You can make it larger. But that to me, with this time constraints, that to me it makes more sense. It's just, what are the big needs that we need in a facility, and map those out.
Ron, I think you're spot on. And it would be helpful to know, one of the things we've talked a lot about is activities happening at the same time.
Right.
And to be thinking about that and realizing what that is and what does that mean. And you don't necessarily need a giant room to hold 150 people.
Right.
Only there to hold 150 people.
Right.
So
right.
these, I think, putting together this list of what will really help an architect understand the costs for a build out in a general sense would be very helpful. How many of these? And I think we need to think a little bit about programs to make sure that we're thinking about it correctly. You need, 3 card rooms that are running concurrently. Do you need 2 large gym spaces running concurrently? There are constraints that happen. What if you're going to have some loud activity somewhere? Does that mean the whole building, the rest of the building isn't useful? Well, maybe the second floor gives you a piece of that answer because you can isolate the sound that way. So those are the kinds of things that would be really helpful for the architect to come back and say, okay, I have an idea of how much work is involved. It's going to cost, this much per square foot. Boom. You should be budgeting.
And just back to the old, the current senior center, you could use those for office space as well too, potentially. Maybe it's not completely on site, but it's nearby.
So, I mean, there are people poking around at opportunities at that space already.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Okay, so I know John Sassel is very good at making us come up with, knowing what the expectations are and who's going to do what. So we have the committee that's going to be working with staff. The outline that John had, to focus us at, probably a second or third meeting way back when, have that, as well as, I think it's not different. It's more specific then, but what I was asking for you for, Mark, as far as, areas for input, definitely areas for input. I think the two should be able to be integrated, and we come up with one thing that relatively quickly, hopefully, that could go out to everybody on the committee, so that we can all be looking to generate input to channel through. And who should be the person that we're channeling everything through? Is it Jenna or Jean? Jean has her hand up. Jean?
Thanks. Yeah, so I was just thinking that, as we kind of walk through all of this, I have a lot of detailed notes, so I'm happy to jump in and help sort through everything. The point of earlier about the Pleasant Street Center, I would just encourage, I know there's probably a million different scenarios, but if we could just kind of put a pin on what any decisions on the Pleasant Street Center, because at a minimum, even if we lock the door and put the building on mothballs, I would strongly urge considering retaining that property for the parking, if nothing else. Staff is going to need a place to park. Instructors are going to need a place to park. The van parks there. So as tempting as it is to be thinking about, okay, this is a huge asset that we can now, think about. It's a huge asset for any utilization of other properties going forward. And until we get there, I would just really urge everyone to be thinking of the value of holding on to that building and that parking until we're at a final decision.
That's beyond the scope of us anyway. We can't say
Yeah.
what's going to
Well,
happen.
just in case to make that shift, I would just want to emphasize that we'd be mindful of that.
Okay. So noted. Okay, Fidel?
Yeah, I think Ron said, could we get a tour of the space? I think, I obviously want to be careful not to, not to have an open house there, if you will, but at least the three members that I think we all agreed to work on this working group. I think Ron, Michael, and Mark, I'll send you all an email for a tour time next week. I think that would be timely. I think I think what we probably want to do is get John Sasso's working list, if you will, sometime next week, and Amy's kind of calibrated attendance, if you will, and hopefully get it in front of the architects sooner rather than later.
And I think, Fidel, if we can put together the list of what would be most helpful to the architect in estimating kind of what the inputs are going to be to that, I think we could kind of get that for, maybe early to mid next week. We could provide that to all the committee members. I think the other piece that we talked about was benchmarking other communities, maybe similar in size, on usage data. So in other words, we've looked at their facilities and what they've got. It'd be great to understand a little bit better usage data in a community of similar size, and even bigger ones could be fine too. But I think the similar size ones may be the most persuasive. And maybe we can have one person that focuses on that, kind of gathering that as input, and then maybe it makes sense for us to meet again in early September as a group.
Okay. One thing that I'm minded of when I hear people discussing the needs in the community center versus senior center sort of thing is it keeps on coming up. Well, we have tons of facilities for youth. Even though we're talking about a community center, we're not just talking about youth. And the fact that recreation has a hard time being able to find space, I think would be a big surprise to most people in the community who just assume that, of course, they can utilize the schools, because that's what I've heard, and I know that's not the case. And I think, and can the school department be more, on board with, that they're part of the larger community, and maybe get them to yes, Fidel.
I think Ron hinted at it earlier. It's more operational costs, right? I mean, if Jenna wanted to run a pickleball tournament in Parker, right? We got to open up the whole school. We got to have custodians. We got to have security. It's that's why centralizing is better, right? I mean, and we see it at the library, right? That using the majority of the space, you get some scales. You get savings by using the whole building. I don't think that the superintendent would be opposed to anything. It's more, if you're opening up a school for pickleball at 7 p.m. On a Thursday, it comes with a lot of additional overhead, if you will.
Mm-hmm. No, understood.
And not meaning to kick the can at all down the road, but as we think about other town-owned property, and possibly Simon's Way in particular, certainly recreational uses, I think, are going to be high on the list of considerations for that location.
Okay, John Sasso.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what Ron had said earlier. I think it's going to be difficult for us, and I don't think we should take this as an objective, to come up with very, very detailed information here. I think we do have to be somewhat macro. I think the goal is really, and to, Fidel and Mark can chime in, but is to give the architect enough information that they can scope something out. Even if it isn't exactly what we want, they can give us an estimate from cost and time and what the thing's going to look like. So I do think it's incumbent upon us to maybe at the top level really prioritize what we think are the things that we want and kind of give some general guidance around those particular pieces. I do think it's important, however, I will say from a programmatic perspective, there are some issues that may dictate like dedicated rooms. Like we might want a dedicated computer room. We might want a dedicated art, craft, handy room. So there are some things like that that, we can't just necessarily, push off. So I
And a
think we have
social
to,
area, I think, has been.
yeah,
identified as
so
some-
absolutely. So there's stuff like that that we can at a macro level include, but how much detail we're going to be able to give in terms of, well, it should be 1,000 square feet or 50. I think it's going to be tough for us to get too far into those weeds. So I think if my perspective would be if we can stick at that higher level in terms of priorities and in specific spaces and maybe some guidance on feedback on, general ideas about, well, we want this to be a large room versus a small room. I mean, we can add whatever other verbiage we want in guidance. I think that's probably the best, especially if we want something quick. That's probably the best we're going to be able to do, at least in my mind. So I'd say I'll take what I have and I will send that out to Jean and Jenna. I'll let you guys send it out to the committee, and then just to avoid any open meeting issues, just send the stuff back to Jean and Jenna for collection, and then they can coordinate it back to Michael and Mark and Ron. But I think that's the best we're going to be able to do in a relatively short period of time.
I mean, and keep in mind that I mentioned the redoing your kitchen example, right? What you're giving us is a framework, right? And there will be a lot of opportunity to refine that framework, right? So it's basically taking it high level and bringing options back to the committee that we can then talk about and dive through.
I'd like to have us think also about, in many cases, the number of people we're accommodating for some of the activities, because I think that actually can help define the space. We don't have the expertise to say, you need 602.8 square feet for a card room or something like that. But we might be able to say, hey, there are activities. We know we talked about this when we have gatherings, whether it's St. Patrick's Day or whatever, that we never have enough space. And we know that we can hold today, 60, whatever the number is. And we know that it's at least double that would be interested in that. And we can bring that back to the architect and say, okay, for this kind of an activity, this is the kind of space we're looking to have. For some of the sports activities, how many computers do we have? How many would we anticipate having? Those things can give a little bit of guidance. And I think questions like, hey, if everybody came back and said, we need 50 offices, obviously I'm exaggerating vastly, but that's, there's the architect very quickly goes and, adds, okay, every office costs you X. The kinds of spaces, the more different things, the more cutting things up, I would imagine, the more cost gets associated with it. But I think we want some outside expertise to come in. I think, and that's part of the point, Ron and John, you're bringing in also. We're not trying to ask us for more expertise than we have, but to give some guidance to these folks who then can say, okay, so when I build senior centers and I think about handling this many people, this is what we do. We're going to allocate this much space for social, this much space for card rooms. And you say you want, 4 or 5, great, that helps me. Large spaces, what are we talking about? A kitchen. A kitchen is not a kitchen, right? Is it for warming things up? Is it for, a little bit of activity? Is it, sprawling, filming, and all sorts of other things? We've talked a little bit about this. I think that's the kind of guidance that can help also.
Okay. One last time. I think hopefully we know where we're going with this. And well, we'll await more information. Well, the committee's, it's gonna already, do you want to schedule a time for that committee, subcommittee, or you want to do that later?
So can I suggest, are you saying that for the smaller group or
Smaller group,
for,
smaller group.
sorry,
Yeah, the smaller group.
oh, okay. I would think you may want to kind of let that form a little bit first through Fidel, figuring out who all will be involved and kind of organizing that one. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Fidel, but is that what you were thinking?
I mean, I was thinking that we schedule this walkthrough first, right? I mean, and maybe we have just a quick meeting in my office just to start thinking first. I mean, and I think if we can schedule both for next week, that would be great.
And then maybe think also about the next recalc meeting, what the goals are, and then go back and say, okay, in order to make that meeting productive, here's what we're going to need. You know, we're going to need to have gone through the data that we're talking about, to look through to see comparable communities, contact them to get data on how they're set up, how many people attend, you know, where do they have the big clogs, things like that. Then I think that allows the whole committee a chance to kind of feed their thoughts into the folks that are going to be working on a more regular basis with Phil and team.
That wasn't it. The last part wasn't as clear to me. If you're talking about recalc meeting, I was thinking.
Yeah. So in other words, everybody wants to have input.
Yes.
Should. How do we coordinate that? How do we kind of get kind of an upfront, not upfront, but as soon as possible, take on what that is, so that the folks that are going to be working with Fidel are armed with that already. So that would say, hey, why don't we have a recalc meeting in a couple of weeks into September, with the goal being that we'll have pulled together a bunch of this information. You know, we're already on tap to present to the select board in October. No defined date, but that's kind of what we had talked about. I think what we're suggesting here is, you know, let's gather as much of the information as we can kind of now for September rather than October. Won't have the survey, got it, but all the other information we can.
Okay. And I was thinking, since we're talking about September, it would be right after the RFPs due, right? I mean, wouldn't that make?
Yeah, second, third week is probably just right.
Yeah. Okay.
And the survey, all the data from the survey as well too.
So all the stuff that is coming in online and is, you know, not open-ended questions, they should be able to read whenever, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So the more info we have, the better. But the very time sensitive is to help the architect get started. So we want to make sure we've got that. We want to make sure all recalc members are sharing their personal input, you know, based on kind of what's been going on. We want to take advantage of all the data that we have. We want to look at some comparable communities, and basically, you know, be prepared for, you know, for this location in particular. Potentially, if someone else responds to the RFP, and to the point that a lot of folks have made, also, let's make sure that, you know, our mission was, you know, looking broadly also, and thinking about other facilities that, you know, may not fit in the spaces that we're talking about at the moment. And just don't let them fall off the table. They may not fit in the facility, but doesn't mean they fall off the table.
Okay.
Gene, this is a question for you. Do we have access to seeing the data come into the Qualtrics survey? I know I use Qualtrics at work a lot, and we have like read-only access where we can go in and take a look at the data that's coming in, so we can just get a sense of it. Do you know if we have access like that?
We didn't ask for that. I can inquire. I don't know.
Would that be valuable, folks? As you can see, you log in, you can see the data coming in and see the responses, and just
I can ask.
Yeah, I think the data and somebody to look at it.
I nominated Jane Wellman, but she's not here.
Yeah. Some. I mean, if they can do it, fine. But my thought would have been that seeing individual surveys to come in would not be helpful to me. I'd want to have, you know, tranches anyway, you know, after.
Well, it's not individual. It's sort of how the questions are being rolled up and how they're being answered. That's all.
Right, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a progress report.
Yeah, like a progress report. Yeah.
Right, but progress report wouldn't be individual surveys. It would be.
No.
Right.
Here's how they answered on question number 2.
Yeah.
This was the most popular answer, or something like that. Yeah.
It's day 4. We collected 400 surveys.
Yeah.
This is what we can see. On question 1, most people answered C.
Is the trend.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I was just going to make a suggestion instead of necessarily asking for access, maybe asking for a snapshot at certain points. You know, just to, you know, in support of getting ready for a meeting or when they reach, you know, 500 surveys or whatever. That may actually be a more reasonable request than getting read-only access to their system. But
yep, that's how we use it at work all the time, and certain people have access to certain surveys, and that's all they get to see, and they see the data coming in. So I know it's possible. It's just you know, I don't know if they have to pay extra for that or what. I'm not sure.
Okay. Are we ready to move on?
Speaking of the survey.
All right. And communication plan. John Sasso, who has been doing yeoman work on this.
I'm going to grab the screen, if that's okay. Where is it?
I am going to hop off. Good night, guys.
Yes.
Thanks, Fidel. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Can everybody see my screen?
Nothing's
yet.
going yet.
That's not it. Hold on, I got way too many things open on my computer.
we get a message that says John Sasso has started screen sharing, but that's all it says.
Right.
All right, let me try this again. It's open. All right. How about that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So before we jump into, well, let me say what we attempted to do here was, if you recall a while back ago, was to create a document that would guide our communication activities through this through the committee. I did have a discussion with Jean previously about, you know, maybe this could be more, maybe this, you know, sometimes these documents have a way of finding their way into the public eye. So that really wasn't my intent originally. It really was intended to be kind of an internal document to guide our activities. But certainly it's something we could turn into as a, maybe even to some extent, a record of the committee in some respects, but just food for thought.
You are being recorded.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it certainly is a record from that perspective, but the actual document itself really was just trying to help us guide our activities. So I'm going to jump down to the meat of this. Really, what I wanted to do is give everybody an update on where we are and share some additional work that we've been doing and get your feedback. And then I think we're actually ready to move on a couple of these activities. We've got a few things that are happening in the next month or so as well. We've got actually, I think it's the September 11th is the Fall Street Fair. So that's another touch point opportunity. And there may be a lot of different things we want to do there. Briefly, these were the milestones that we identified. You know, we did the select board meeting back in March. We did a newsletter to kind of summarize the basics. We talked about putting together a video. I'll circle back to that in a few minutes. We've been collecting up peer community information, and we've asked about how we're going to put that together and kind of communicate it. We've already back in May April, May, we sent out a postcard, or I should say the COA sent out a postcard that not only was utilized for the senior center communication, but also in communicating the forum that the community was going to hold on Recalc. We attended Friends and Family Day, and we collected used that as a communication means, and also collected up some emails. We've got, actually, I have a draft of a newsletter too, which we'll talk about, which really is intended to provide some feedback to the community based on the focus groups that have occurred, the forums that have occurred thus far. We have a survey that's getting ready. We have a postcard that, again, is also getting ready to go out. Again, another communication tool. We have the Fall Street Fair, and then we have a few other potential things that we're going to work on. So again, this was really intended to kind of guide our activities. I think we're going to continue to update this. What I had a couple of things I wanted to ask the committee. I wanted to share some status on the more relevant things that are going on today, and then kind of open it up for anybody that has any other thoughts about what we should put in here. I do want to circle back with the comment that Amy made earlier about people asking questions now that this whole Walgreens thing came up. One of I forget who I was speaking to about this, but it would be great if we could maybe, even if it's a press release or a letter to the editor to kind of correct, or not correct, but kind of tamp down the Reading Chronicles article that kind of made it seem like it was a done deal. So we might want to think about that, but I'll hold that conversation for later. So the first question I want to ask, open this to the committee, is that I actually one of the things I thought that we were going to do is, as we completed each of these activities, that we would actually post the information on the Recalc website. And so right now, there's a couple of items that I would like to see posted on the Recalc website that are not there, at least as of the last time I checked. One is the actual presentation that was made to the select board. I realized that was done within the select board meeting, but the PDF of the presentation would be, I think, a relatively easy thing to add, and would be good to link into the Recalc website.
And the members of the Recalc aren't listed either, are they?
On the website?
Yes.
That's a good question. I don't remember the answer to that question, but certainly that certainly could be done, I would think. So that's the first thing, is I'd like to, so the select board report is one. The second item is, we actually had a newsletter that we generated back in April that we called Newsletter 1. There is a PDF of it. I thought it was actually posted on the website. I don't know what actually happened to it, to be honest with you, but it's not there. So there was a discussion about, I thought, I asked Jean about this, and she said she thought that we decided to hold off on posting some of this stuff. So I wanted to, again, raise this up to the community, to the committee, and get everybody's okay that we should actually post some of these on the website. The other item I'd like to post, which I realize we didn't actually put together at the moment, was the PDF of the postcard that went out back in May. And the reason I want to post that is not necessarily because it has the information about the senior center, but also because it actually was the advertisement for the forum, which was tied to Recalc. So we could certainly ask COA if they don't mind us to do that, but I'd like to post it because, again, it's a record of kind of the activities that we've been moving forward with. So my objective would be, as we do these things, to post them. Is there any reason why folks might not want to do that, or why we shouldn't consider doing that?
I think it's a great idea, John.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
to show people that we are actually working on stuff. So.
Yeah, no. Well, and the other reason I thought it was important to post something is, so apparently we've been collecting emails. There's a place to add an email. Every time we post something, it would be great to actually have an email go out to that list saying, hey, come back to the Recalc site. We just posted newsletter number 2 or whatever. We just posted this, and so that there's actually, an impetus for them to say, oh, what's going on? And again, this is part of the community engagement to get them aware that there are things happening. So, that was my perspective, is that as we post things, we should also be issuing a simple communication that says, hey, this document just got posted to the Recalc website. You should come look at it.
I thought that's what we had in mind also. I agree with you. I think that's what I thought the plan was.
So I don't know if this is a Jean or a Jenna action, but who can we get at least the 3 items that I'm talking about at the moment posted to the site?
So Jenna and I have been looking into how we can post items. IT's gotten involved. There's a couple of hiccups that we need to figure out. But I think that's something Jenna and I can work together on.
I know there are just links at the bottom of the site, which is where some of the other material is posted. And I certainly thought that would, at a minimum, be adequate just to add them as links. Okay, so I wanted to give folks an update on some of the more upcoming things that we're working on. So give me 1 second. I gotta open up something else. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so bear with me the formatting, the missed page here. And thank you, Nora provided me some input on this. I did go back and look at some of the forum information. I got I think it was Jean or Jenna sent me the notes from UMass on their forums. There's a lot of information that they collected, and I want to say what I've done here is to distill it. It may be more than we would want to put together, but based on the last conversation we had, the goal of this was really to give folks an update on the community forums, a little bit on the peer community benchmarking work, and also getting people ready for the survey. So this is the first page. It's basically, hey, I gotta fix the numbering, but held 3 community forums, moderated by UMass, and the recordings can be accessed on RCTV. And this is very, I will say there's like 10 pages of notes from UMass. So, this is really very high level bullets, kind of coerced, if you will, from that information. But again, and I'll certainly open it up for discussion. I think the point is that, we've agreed that we want to be transparent, that we want to share this information with the community, that we're listening. This was kind of the feedback that we got at a relatively, I wouldn't say high level, but a relatively good level. And I thought it would be fair to share that and feed that back to the community so that they see that we're listening. So I didn't see this in the packet, or was this in the packet, Jean? I don't think it was. But this is my recommendation for the second newsletter. I think I'm sorry. I hate that.
I like it, John. It starts to really show people that get there.
So this is the second page.
Yeah.
We benchmarked some communities. There's some basic feedback here. We've got some shareholder focus groups that are still going on. Actually, they've been completed, but I'm not worried about them at this point. The fact that we're getting ready for a community survey, prepared 24 questions, where the survey is going to be, when targeting, what it covers, and that we plan to send a postcard out to everybody. And then I had a section on interim help with opera funding. I don't know if that necessarily is something people want on there, but I thought it would be important to give folks a heads up that we've also, this isn't Recalc per se, but whether or not it's something that we need or we want to include, I think it has some value. And then, obviously the last step is what we're going to do beyond that. So it's not a one pager. It's a little bit more than that, but I think it's got a lot of good information. I think if we really are committed to share what's going on, I think this is a good snapshot.
Would this be a good place for the RFP to put something about the RFP as well too?
I don't think so. That's just my opinion. I think that's I think that needs its own perspective at this point. I'm not sure what we would say at this point. I go back, to the question of maybe we should draft. I don't know who. I apologize. I don't know who it was that I was speaking with. We talked about maybe there should be a letter to the editor or a press release or something written that kind of says, hey, yes, this has happened, and yes, we're getting feedback from, we've asked for more. We've sent out another RFP, but this is by no means a done deal, that this is a work in progress. It's an option. The town would love to pursue it, but, Recalc is still moving forward with its projections and its activities, and anything that's going to get done will have to come circle back through town meeting anyhow. So I mean, I don't know, but I think something like that would be a good communication, be something that, if anybody gets a question from the community, they can point to it and say, this is the gospel. But
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
I think pretty strongly that we're better off with an FAQ, and that, it can be anybody that is interested and you're going to send them somewhere, send them to the FAQ in terms of what's going on. The news will be the result of the process, not so much the process.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that highlighting the process adds value. I think it might actually get in the way. And I'm not sure that we really want to get into that. I just want to be careful.
I mean, certainly I think to answer the question, I think this is all I would want to put. This may even be more than we want to put in the newsletter, but this is what I was thinking. I don't think I would add anything else to this. And as far as the other stuff, I don't think we're really in a position to say much more. So if we want to do FAQs, that's fine. But I'm not really. I don't have a strong opinion about doing anything, to be honest with you. Do people want to look at this? Everybody comfortable with this? Do we want to push this out as well? What's the thought of the committee?
I would like to have this go out as soon as possible. Because
I agree.
Once again, some of the things that are at least been put in the newspaper, this would answer some of those questions, as well as letting people know that this is hasn't been a quick and dirty type of thing, that it's been well thought through and a lot's been going into it.
Jean, you have your hand up?
Yep.
Yeah, I just sent something in the chat, John, just to add one more that isn't on here for the focus groups. So we had a staff focus group on June 13th that you probably want to add in. I just noticed that, sorry.
June 13th, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All right, I will add that.
thanks.
Oh, that's right. Town staff focus group, one held in June. That's already on there. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, Mark. Yes.
Thanks, John. So a couple things. I think this is great. I think that we want to make sure that we are putting a PowerPoint, a YouTube, your video, whatever it's going to be, John, but some information about why we need a new senior center, why we're here, why we're doing all this work, why all these things are taking place,
right,
so that someone with the really basic question has an easy way to have it served to them. Here's,
That's a nice segue to what the film's going to be. So
yeah, let me thank you, Mark, for setting me up.
In the nicest way.
Yeah. So let me just give me a second. Sorry. So I actually was hoping to have a little snippet of the video, but actually I do have a snippet of the video, but it's really not ready for even draft prime time. But I think come on, I'm sorry. It's
locked again.
I have 200 windows open on my computer. I have to make sure I'm picking the right one. Okay. Can everybody see my video, my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I want to thank, first of all, John, O'Neill, Jean, Amy, and a gentleman by the name of Nate Boren, who has volunteered to help us out. We met a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, I think. I know where time flies, but we kind of talked about, first of all, what did we really want the video to be? I mean, that was still a critical question. And I think we really honed in on the fact that this is a recalc video. It is not a Pleasant Street Center video. It's not a senior center video. It's a recalc video. And so the focus of the video was really to be like what could be, was kind of our, we really wanted to kind of show people what with contrasting to what exists today. We wanted to show, well, what is it that we could make this facility look like? What sort of things could we envision happening? And so this is the basic outline. So our intention was to put together a basic storyboard. This is effectively the storyboard. It starts with a kind of a basic, very simple script on what's there today. A simple script on recalc, which actually we decided to take some of the slides from the select board presentation and use that as a backdrop for some of the walking people through, well, what is recalc? Why are we doing this? Where are we heading? And then jumping into a segment about, well, what could we be? What could be? What are we going to show them? And we would actually, while this initial intro was playing, we'd have a couple images of some of the fronts of some of the other centers that we visited. And then we would jump into a few, and we just picked a couple to start, but a couple areas, kitchen, dining room, social area, gym. In the Pleasant Street side, and then we would move over to a second set of images from other centers that we visited. And while these were playing, we would just have music going. There'd be no voiceover, it'd just be some music in the background. And then the very last thing is that we would we wanted to get some feedback, find a way to kind of bring in some feedback on what people currently think. And so John had a great idea that we're going to take some of the quotes that were taken during the forums and have people read some of those quotes in terms of what they think they'd really like to see. So it really kind of morphs into, where we are. This is pulled up, have this is what the community seems to
Is it me or is it John breaking up?
Yeah, you're breaking up.
I'm sorry, is that the internet?
You didn't get your mesh yet, huh?
Connection went a little unstable there. Can you hear me now? Can you
Yes.
guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, it broke up. So the bottom line is that we're basically took each of these segments, put together a script, identified the slides or the images that we're doing. So it's coming along. One of the couple things that I actually wanted to bring to the committee. Number one, does anybody have a reference or a recommendation for somebody that could do some of the voiceovers? My voice is not the best on this. We did reach out to somebody else to see if they could potentially help, but we're looking for potential people that might be able to do some of the voiceovers. The easy thing is they could just record it on their iPhone or their phone and send me the audio. Does anybody have a recommendation or thought? Jean, are you still on? I'm sorry, I can't see you if you are.
I think Amy was
Yes,
raising her
I'm
hand.
here.
I had actually made a recommendation of I'm sorry, now I'm forgetting her name. Wellman. What's her first name?
Oh, Jane Wellman.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jane, her, because from a town meeting, she had a very clear, crisp, very
Yes.
understandable voice. I don't know
She
if
does a lot of our messaging on the alerts too, so I think.
Yeah, I don't know if she would be willing to, I mean, it's not a lot, you know, in total, we're talking probably about 2 minutes worth of script. But I would, it'd be nice to have somebody that had a really clear, crisp, understandable voice. If she'd be willing to do that, that would be awesome.
Kevin Vent is another person to speak to. He moderates on RCTV a lot of the discussions, and he's got a very deep, easy to understand voice.
I was gonna say, or we could even ask a couple of instructors in Reading too.
VENDT, I think.
VENT?
VENDT, I believe. Yeah.
And we said RCTV?
Yes. And the Reading Post.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can follow up and find this person. Jean, if you'd be willing to ask Jane as well, that'd be awesome if we could
Sure,
get.
I can follow up on that, no problem.
Okay. The next question I had is, I still need, so during the site visits, there were a lot of really nice pictures that folks took. I'm trying to see if we can get the original JPEGs of those pictures. I don't know if they're sitting on Kevin's machine somewhere or where they ended up. They were in one of the packets as PDFs, but I really need the JPEGs, or else it's going to look really. So the draft video I have right now has screenshots of these pictures that were on JPEGs, that were in PDFs, and they're really tough to. They really don't look that way. We need to get those updated images if somebody can help me with that.
You should probably set up a Google Drive or some sort, John, just to post some of those in.
Amy has her hand up.
Yeah, John, sorry. I can reach out to Kevin. I don't, just to see if he knows. He's 5 hours ahead now, so it's too late. But I can reach out to him to see if he remembers.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think, Jenna, are you still here?
Yes, I am. I have access to his files, so I can look if he does say that they're on there.
Yeah, so I think if we poke around with Jenna's help and see what's on his, his files that he left behind.
Yeah.
That's probably a little bit easier.
I think everybody had sent their images to him, so that's probably where they all are. The other alternative is if folks still have the images when they took them, and can find them, certainly they can send them to me as well. But yeah, if it's possible to get those original JPEGs, it will make things look so much better.
Jenna, you and I can look at it together tomorrow if you want. I'll look at his drive too as well, because I know he saved a lot to Elder Services.
Great.
So again, my hope is that we actually have a deadline for this. So Nate is an incoming freshman at Hofstra University, and he is leaving on the 30th of August. So if we don't get it done by then, it falls back into my plate. And if it falls on my plate, it's gonna go to the very bottom of the priority list, unfortunately. But we actually did put together a very, very rough draft. So I think it's good. He's getting the hang of what things needs to be done, and we can get these images in. I think we'll be in good shape. We've kind of already picked out the ones that we want to use. The other thing we do need to do is we do need to get down to the Pleasant Street Center and take a few video and images of some of the existing space, so we can use those. So probably so Nate had his wisdom teeth out today. So I think we'll be waiting till next week probably. But I'll coordinate with you, Amy, and see if we can get in there. I don't think we're going to need a lot of time but probably just a few good shots to compare with
Sure.
would be good.
I told the staff to, this is a priority, so everyone gets it, and next week is definitely busy.
Yeah.
So, which is good, because I think we want to show that we're busy and there's a need.
Yeah, we certainly have no issue getting people and showing the space in use. Actually, that actually is even better in some respects. A lot of the pictures that we have of the other sites don't have space in use, so they're very open. But that that's okay. But at least we'll have something to compare to. So I'm gonna the only other thing I wanted to talk about briefly here is we have the Fall Street Fair coming up in September, and I think there's been some discussion around plans for that, especially since the survey will be ready and out at that point. We'll have some extra spare postcards, I suspect. I think, did Elder Services get a booth, or what do you know who or what we did for that thus far? Anybody know?
Jenna, do you guys have a booth?
Do not. I know that Will, our Veteran Services Officer, mentioned that he might be there. So, but if
Let's turn this
someone
around.
wants to have a booth, I'm sure that's possible. I can reach out to the Fall Street Fair Committee.
Yeah, I can do that too if one of us.
Did COA? Does anybody know if COA got a booth?
I do not know the answer to that. Sorry.
I don't think so. I had asked Marilyn, but I've been out a couple days, so I know I've gotten a bunch of emails from her. I just have to look through. So I'm not too sure is my answer.
Well, again, I mean, I think we want to have a presence
Yeah,
at the Fall Street
definitely.
Fair. So we should take that as an action, John, to follow up on, if there is a booth that exists that one of the departments have that we can piggyback on, or if we need to get our own, or if we need to do something with COA or Elder Services or Veteran Services or whatever, we should definitely make sure we're there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think in the
Okay.
past, there's been a shared table for the department. That's how my memory is of how we've done it in the past.
Yes, last year I went with Kevin.
Yeah.
So it was shared with veterans. So I just put it on my list to reach out to Will.
Yeah, I'm sure that's no
Do
problem.
we have
I
some
already planned on
copies of the newsletter, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly I'll try to get that together like in the next day or so, and it's going to just be a PDF document that we could print.
Yeah, no, but I think that, because it's, it usually has a huge crowd, so.
Well, we have that. I think the more, I mean, that definitely is an idea to have. More important, I think, is to have the postcard with, getting folks to the survey. That's really I think the primary, and also to continue to collect email addresses. I don't know. Does anybody know how many email addresses we have in the Recalc database at the moment? Is there a way to find that out? Anybody know? I know I
Recalc,
signed
I'm
up.
not sure.
That's all I know.
Or
I
even
think
how many
Caitlin or Jackie in the town manager's office manage those, so I can reach out to them as well and see if they know the total amount of emails.
I don't know if those got added from after the last. There was a listing that came out. I hope they got added in. Okay. Other than that, I'm gonna keep the plan up to date. I'll add more information. Like I said, I'd like to add links to the items as we complete them and put them on the site. And then, yeah, I think when we do add something, we should. I don't know if it has to be. If we want to send an email, actually, this is a good question. If we want to send an email out to the list that is signed up through Recalc, is that something that we as a group would then put together and give to the communication team to send out, or how does that work? I don't know, Jean, how could that work, or should that work? Because that's it's a town website. It's the town, the database is maintained on that website now.
So I think I had asked about having a link to the town manager's communication letter. See, because that would be a fairly extensive list. I'm wondering how many people may actually be on a recap.
That's why I asked. I was like, I don't know.
Right, no. So I'm suspecting that it may be good that not instead of, but to see the town manager's newsletter as a, you know, and a link there to this.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that Jenna and I need to do a little more work on this. To get you guys some more information on how things work. The idea of linking whatever you want to link to the town manager's newsletter. He does a monthly newsletter. So that's one idea. I don't know how many people he sends it out to, but the functionality of the website, when somebody signs, information on that.
Okay. John, I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any other comments or feedbacks or thoughts on any of that.
So we have, oh, Nora has her hand up. I'm sorry, Nora.
Yeah, I'm just, the Friends, no, not the Friends and Family Day, the Fall Street Fair. I'm willing to man the booth or, for the day. Now, the thing is that survey is being sent out when? September 1? Is that correct?
I think the postcard's going out after Labor Day, if I read,
think
if
the
I read the
6th.
information correctly. Yeah.
Okay,
The
so
goal is September 6th.
okay, so when we're at the Fall Street Fair, they would have already received this postcard, correct?
I don't know if it's in the mail on the 6th. I don't how long it's going to take.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to commit to that, given the post office's service.
But it's just critical that we promote the survey. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
no, absolutely.
Newsletters there, I think that would be great too.
If they have received the postcard prior to that, that's great. But I wouldn't hold my breath.
Okay.
Because the Fall Street Fair is the Sunday after Labor Day. So if it goes out on Tuesday the 6th, I don't know how long it'll take, but we'll know, because it's going out to everybody in Reading. So if by Saturday the 10th we don't have it, then it's not out there. So
yeah.
So why don't we assume some will have received it, some will not have, but why couldn't we have a giant size version of the postcard, like poster size, right there, which includes the QR code.
Yeah.
It includes a phone number for those who aren't going to be playing with a QR code.
It's a great idea.
Off we go.
I was planning on creating a couple sheets with the QR code like we did the last time as well anyhow. So I think we should definitely have that.
Or have a laptop. Would you like to take a survey?
That's a good idea too. We have Google Chromebooks. We could probably bring a couple.
So how about
We talked about that
contacting?
last time. We talked about doing iPads and having people take the survey right there.
Yeah.
What if we got in touch with the school department, and who does the service? Who has service requirements? What groups? The various high schoolers.
Honor Society,
Community.
Honor Society, for example, have service requirements to fulfill. Maybe they would man the tablets.
Huh?
And actually corral people and have them do it. And maybe if they do it there, you put their name in for a drawing. Or a candy bar or something.
We did a raffle last year, a couple gift cards, so that's a good idea.
Recall a t-shirt.
Limited edition.
People love free stuff. It might work. I like the way of thinking.
Yeah. All right. Those are all great ideas. Actually, we did talk about having iPads or people there that could actually fill in the survey right there. I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
So who's going to make the connection as far as the school?
So right now, unfortunately, there's really nobody to connect to, right? Certainly the students aren't back yet.
Right.
So I don't know about an admin.
I will reach out through the superintendent, who I need to chat with anyway.
Okay.
And the goal would be kind of like Honor Society or others
Right.
at Fall Street Fair to do surveys on tablets. Do the tablets have internet access? I'm assuming they do.
I think they do. I think we had a hotspot, but where we'll be in between, we're right in the center. So I think that it would pick up the town guest, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I think I know Xfinity has a hotspot in downtown.
They do, and we're right in front. If we're the same place last year, we were right in front of Cafe Nero. So we could even
Use their Wi-Fi for 2 hours.
I don't want to say steal their Wi-Fi, but
Okay.
Who has the tablets?
I'm mindful of the time because I know some people have a time crunch here. So
I think we have the meeting ending at 9. So does it kick us off?
No.
No? Okay.
John might, but Zoom.
I don't think John. I thought you meant the other John.
Do we have a presence of the survey on the town website? Can it be right on the front page potentially?
That's something I'm working with Jane Wellman on to see how we can position this.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was one of the questions I have because the postcard said go to the site, the website, the main site. So there should be something right there to say, oh, here's the survey.
Yep, that's on my list.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Okay.
the last item, if we can, was John Sasso asked to have it put on, final draft of survey and postcard. And by the way, any member of the committee, more than welcome to have items added to the agenda. I mean, it's everybody's committee. So John, what?
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew
Okay.
that those copies were done, that they were in the packet, and that's all I really wanted to make sure is that
Okay,
I think everybody sort of had an opportunity to provide feedback. So
right,
I
previously.
that's all. That's it.
And could I
Okay.
just quickly say to
Mhm.
Nora, thank you for volunteering. I'll reach out to you. I'll send an email to the COA
Okay.
about volunteering. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're ready for the next meeting.
Next
Oh,
meeting.
Can I ask a question before you do
Yes.
that, John? Just
Sure.
to follow up on the item, Amy, you mentioned that the tablets. Who has the tablets? Do you have the tablets?
We do. Yep, we have them locked in a cabinet.
How many do you have?
Good question.
Chromebooks, she has, not tablets.
Yeah,
Chromebooks, okay.
Chromebooks. Yeah, Google Chromebooks. Let me double check on how many. I want to say 10. I could be totally wrong. We
Yeah.
might have more.
And are they administered by IT? So Kevin Furla's team?
No, they're actually, we administer them, and it is one of the items. We have a senior center coordinator starting on Monday. So that's one of the items that I have on the very long list of things to go over with them. So I can let you know the answer to that.
Please. And with that person, I know it won't be the very first thing they do, but early on in their tenure, not only how many machines there are, but how do they get to the internet? I'm assuming that a hotspot would be fine. I'm assuming they don't have a built-in 5G card. How do they get to the internet?
Like the Chromebooks have Wi-Fi built in.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but not a 5G card, right?
No, it's Wi-Fi built in the Chromebook.
Okay.
I have 2 of them at home. They work
Oh,
great.
nice.
They're awesome.
Okay, great. So that would be helpful. All right, because I want to use that to talk to the Honor Society about. To tell
Okay,
them we could use a lot of
Any
volunteers.
last questions, comments before we schedule the next meeting? Okay, seeing none, next meeting. So September, and we want to have it as soon after the RFP is in, because we have a lot to.
Just a quick question. I know we talked about, all this stuff that's going to happen over the next week or two. Is there any appetite or desire to potentially meet, before Labor Day at this point to kind of circle back on some of these activities and issues? Because we've got a lot going on between now and Labor Day, and then immediately after that is the Fall Street Fair, and I'm just wondering if it might make sense to do something, maybe last week in August, first half week in September.
I'm not available, but that's just me.
The very end of August, I wouldn't be available, but I could do it.
I think it's a tough week. I'm not available either. I think a lot of people,
How about Wednesday the 7th?
Sure, we could always do that, and then, after the RFP comes in, do another meeting quickly in September as well.
So just to give you a flavor on that too. So I think the RFP is due on the 12th, I think. And the select board meets on the 13th of September.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm fine with the 7th. I think we should try to plan on something, relatively soon. That's still 4 weeks out, but.
Right.
I'm not available. Sorry, I'm going to be traveling.
Okay. So September 7th, and just to John's point, we all have something to do though before then. We're all going to be providing input as far as, the macro picture, as far as the needs for a new center. So that's something that everybody has to, has on their to-do list, okay? And so next meeting will be September 7th.
Can I just ask, who took notes tonight?
Ron,
can you, I don't, maybe get them to Jean, but I know we talked about a lot of different actions, and if it'd be great if we could get those notes out like in the next day or two, just so we all remember all the things that we all signed up to do.
you forget
when it comes in the packet like a week before, and like there's 5 actions that I forgot to do, that's not helpful.
I think Jean and Jenna know I send it out right after the meeting. So
yeah, no, I'm not.
Jean and I have been sending out emails during the meeting, so we don't forget.
I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying if we can get those out with those, that'd be awesome. Especially
just
with
about to hit send now, John. So as soon as we get the meeting and the roll call done.
All right.
Okay. So let's entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's your second. So we'll go through the roll call. Ron Assini.
Yes.
Nora Bucco.
Yes.
Michael Coltman.
Yes.
Mark Doxer.
Yes.
John Parsons. Is John? Okay, he's not with us. John Sasso.
Yes.
And John O'Neill, yes. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan. Good meeting. John, I hope you feel better, by the way.
I know, feel
John
better,
O'Neill, hope you feel better.
John.
Get
Sorry
ready
to
to
hear
quit.
that, John. I
A
hope
long
you feel
siege.
better.